There's a moment so small, most people miss it. The ego quietly takes the wheel. It sneaks in after we plant an intention and rebrands vigilance as progress. Suddenly manifestation becomes a to-do list instead of a state of being. You start measuring with rituals, metrics, timelines, as if the universe is a contractor who needs hourly reports. This handover is subtle because the ego speaks sensible language. Be responsible, plan ahead, work harder. Those words feel mature and rational, so we hand the process over willingly. But handing the process to the ego changes the agreement. Instead of aligning our frequency, we micromanage outcomes. The voice that once protected us from real danger now designs our inner strategy sessions. And the ironic part, the very qualities that made the ego useful, planning, detail orientation, become the exact things that block resonance. When the work of creation is delegated to a controlling part of the mind, the field receives a scrambled signal. This is why so many sincere practitioners feel stuck. They're doing the work the ego demands, not the work the field requires, which is coherence, not calculation. Effort feels productive. We equate busyness with progress, more affirmations, longer visualizations, more rituals, and we believe each repetition is a deposit in the bank of our desire. But the energetic truth is different. Chronic doing broadcasts the story, I don't have it yet. The more frantic the doing, the louder that story rings. Imagine shouting into a cosmic radio and expecting silence to return songs. Instead, you only amplify the static you want to remove. Effort without embodied alignment is noise. It creates a feedback loop. Lack effort, stress more lack. That loop trains the nervous system to expect scarcity, and the body replies with fear physiology that narrows perception and shrinks possibilities. The trickiest part is that effort often delivers small, fake wins, a momentary rush of productivity, or a mildly improved outcome that convince the ego it's working. Those small wins reinforce the addiction to doing. Real change, however, begins when doing is motivated by inner clarity and inspired action rather than by fear and striving. The field doesn't reward frantic motion, it mirrors coherent presence. Planting a seed offers the perfect image of what most of us do to our intentions. We choose the seed, our desire. We plant it, we set an intention, and we immediately start micromanaging. We dig up the soil each morning to check progress, overwater in panic, expose the fragile sprout to harsh light, or yank it out because it's not growing fast enough. The result is predictable. Root systems are destroyed, and nothing takes hold. The lesson is simple yet profound. The natural life of a seed needs two complementary things: an aligned environment and time. The gardener's role is not to control the seed's biology, but to provide conducive conditions and trust. Our inner gardener is the soul that sets the intention, and then steps back to sustain the conditions of coherence. Calm attention, consistent care, not obsession. When you let the field do its part, the unseen processes of growth operate. But when the ego continually intervenes out of fear or impatience, it prevents the delicate processes from unfolding. The seed metaphor is a compassionate reminder. Creation has rhythms. Your job is to plant, align, and trust, not to suffocate the miracle. Coherence is the arrangement where parts move together, producing a single clear signal. In physics, it means particles or waves in phase align so their effects amplify instead of cancel. Translating that to human experience, coherence is when heart, mind, and body are operating as one, when emotional tone, beliefs, and physiology sing the same song. Coherent energy is concise, magnetic, and unconflicted. It doesn't need complex rituals or frantic proving. It simply is. The field is sensitive to this simplicity. When your internal pieces match, your broadcast is clear, and the field responds almost instantly. Coherence also brings elegance, fewer actions, more precision. Instead of dozens of scattered attempts, a single aligned choice will have disproportionate effect. Practically, coherence looks like steady breath, embodied feeling of already having, and intentional choice of small inspired actions. The paradox: less doing, more being, less complexity, more potency. When you practice coherence, you become a living waveform the universe can read easily. The noise drops away, and possibilities that were previously drowned in static now appear with startling clarity. The ego's survival strategy depends on complexity. Problems keep it relevant. Plans give it purpose. Struggle proves it's working. Simplicity threatens the ego, because if things are easy, it loses its job description. This is why many people sabotage simple solutions without even knowing it. The ego feels safer when there is always something to solve. The psyche prefers familiar discomfort to unfamiliar ease, because familiarity, even painful, is predictable. So when a straightforward approach offers a fast route to alignment, the ego invents reasons to complicate. Safety checks, contingency plans, extra rituals. These feel like responsibility, but they are often avoidance. The ego's logic is circular. If you accept ease, you must accept that your identity might shift away from being the struggler, the fixer. For many, that identity is emotionally charged. It's how they prove value, earn attention, or maintain control. Letting go of complexity asks the ego to cede territory. That's why simplicity initially triggers resistance, but beyond the resistance lies freedom. A life where your energy isn't wasted on appearances of doing, but on felt alignment that actually produces results. Think of your energy as a radio signal. The field tunes to frequency, not to how loudly you broadcast. Static, doubt, overthinking, desperation scrambles the signal until the field can't interpret it. Frequency, on the other hand, is a clean tone the field can lock onto and amplify. Noise doesn't merely make your transmission less pretty, it changes the content. If you're broadcasting lack underneath your affirmations, the universe responds to lack. The task isn't to shout louder, but to clean the bandwidth. That means addressing the emotional and physiological layers that create static, unresolved fears, body tension, habitual doubt. When you remove the static, your pure intent becomes audible, and the cosmos begins to reconfigure. It's your tuzer spiel but tebius. That's tum you sold some like cramel chuse. Importantly, frequency is not fakery. It must be honest embodiment of the end state. You can't pretend warmth in a frozen body for long. The field reads the whole system. Focus on raising baseline tone through practices that quiet the mind and center the heart. That's how the signal becomes unmissable. Science gives us a map for why the ego's tactics feel so convincing. The prefrontal cortex runs predictive simulations. It constantly compares new inputs to stored memories, and decides whether the current situation is safe. When your past includes scarcity and disappointment, the brain predicts more of the same, and triggers stress chemistry to protect you. Cortisol, adrenaline, and tightened breathing narrow cognitive bandwidth and bias attention toward threats. That's survival mode. But survival mode is a poor environment for creation because it's geared to reduce variance, not expand possibility. Practices that shift physiology, deep breathing, vagal tone stimulation, heart-focused attention change the baseline. They downregulate threat responses and expand the window for intuitive insight. That's why high performers and mystics show similar physiological signatures: less noisy self-reference, more integrated brain networks, greater coherence between heart and brain. In short, when your nervous system is quiet and safe, your capacity to hold a new possibility increases. The brain stops collapsing probable futures back into the old story and begins to entertain genuinely different outcomes. The universe functions like a mirror. It reflects the state you hold, not the words you speak. If beneath your language of abundance you hold fear, the mirror will show that fear as missed opportunities and delays. This mirror is not judgmental. It's transactional and accurate. That's both good news and a challenge. The good news is that when you change your internal state, you change the reflection quickly. The challenge is that piecemeal techniques that ignore deeper vibration won't alter the mirror for long. You can put on a smile, repeat an affirmation, and for a moment the mirror may give a flattering image. But if your body and subconscious still carry the old narrative, the reflection returns to form. The remedy is honest resonance. Cultivate feelings congruent with the outcome. Adjust physiology to a state of ease, and be consistent. Then the mirror stops being a cruel critic and becomes an amplifier of your coherent frequency. The more you practice coherent states, the more the mirror yields evidence that supports and stabilizes your new identity. Across cultures and eras, the message is strikingly similar. Relinquish the small self to access the greater creative field. Mystics speak of dissolving the ego. Buddhists call it the monkey mind. Christian mysticism talks about dying to self. Modern teachers describe heart-brain coherence. They all point at the same practical reality. The part of you that clings to control cannot access effortless flow. This agreement across wisdom traditions and modern research suggests we're tapping into a reliable human truth. The value of referencing diverse sources is not to add authority for its own sake, but to show that this pattern is universal. We see it in ancient practices and contemporary neuroscience. That universality offers comfort. You're not failing. You're encountering a known human dynamic. The practices offered by various traditions, letting go, contemplative prayer, meditation, living from the end, are different tools for the same shift. Use what resonates. The point isn't belief in a doctrine, it's consistent movement from trying to being. Letting go feels counterintuitive, because it appears as surrender, and surrender mistaken for weakness triggers panic. Yet in the field, letting go grants a more powerful kind of control through alignment. The surfer illustrates this perfectly. The surfer who tries to force the wave will wipe out. The surfer who senses, aligns, and moves with the wave is carried effortlessly. The paradox is that surrendering micro-control frees you to enact macro guidance. You stop exhausting energy fighting currents you cannot change, and instead place your energy where it actually moves outcomes, your inner signal. Letting go is not abdication. It's strategic recalibration. It allows emergent intelligence, intuition, synchronicity, inspired action to appear. Practically, letting go is practiced in micro moments. When impatience arises, choose breath. When fear suggests extra steps, ask whether those steps are necessary or ego-driven. Over time, surrender becomes an active skill, not a passive state. And the more you practice this paradox, the more the field begins to favor you. Nature favors elegant solutions. Look at an equation like E=mc² or the orbit of a planet. Beauty equals efficiency. The field operates on similar principles. Simple, coherent inputs produce maximal outcomes. That's why long lists of rituals often underperform compared to single consistent practices that change your baseline state. Simplicity concentrates energy. It's not about laziness. It's about removing friction so the system can move. The ego confuses complexity with thoroughness, but complexity usually dilutes force. Simplicity forces alignment. When you strip away superfluous steps and deepen one potent practice, like embodying the feeling of the fulfilled desire for 5 minutes daily, you create a stronger, clearer signal. Simplicity also invites play and curiosity. It opens your system to receive rather than micromanage. In practice, test this. Pick one coherent practice and do it daily for a month. Compare outcomes to the month when you did 10 scattered rituals. The field rewards the elegant waveform. Your brain is a pattern engine. It learns, predicts, and conserves energy by collapsing futures into the most probable past-derived outcome. Overthinking is the habit of measuring the present against worn grooves from the past, and repeatedly collapsing the possibility wave back into old scenarios. Each measurement is an act of conservatism. Each overanalysis is a collapse back to the familiar. Predictive coding helps us survive, but it also fences creativity. Overthinking narrows your perceptual aperture so you no longer notice novel ways the field might deliver. The antidote is practice that expands your tolerance for uncertainty. Short meditative pauses, breathwork, and curiosity-based questions that widen possibilities rather than narrow them. These practices train the brain to entertain multiple futures, letting the field present options you could not see while stuck in analysis. Over time, the mind learns to become a collaborator instead of a jailer of possibility. First, repetition without embodiment. You can list desires like a grocery list, but feel no inner shift. That's mental rehearsal without emotional currency. Second, demanding proof before trust. The ego says, show me, because it fears disappointment. But waiting for external proof broadcasts doubt. Third, obsessing over the how. This narrows the corridor of delivery to only the routes you can imagine. Each sign has a corrective. For repetition without embodiment, practice tiny daily felt experiences of the end state. For proof demanding, commit to trust experiments. Small non-essential things you allow to unfold without micromanagement. For obsessing over the how, intentionally widen the question, how could this happen, rather than how will this happen. These shifts break the pattern and open the field to unexpected pathways. When you notice tension, that tight chest, racing mind, or compulsive planning, you can interrupt the pattern immediately. Pause. Take 3 full, slow breaths, lengthening the exhale. Bring attention to your heart. Imagine your breath expanding the chest as warmth rather than urgency. This physiological shift signals safety to your nervous system and drops cortisol. As your body calms, your mind loosens its grip on the old timeline. You can then choose a small aligned action, or return to receptive presence. The key is speed. The longer you remain in survival physiology, the more entrenched the old pattern. Make this a micro-routine. Spot the cue, pause, breathe, reset. Over time, the interrupt becomes automatic, and your baseline coherence rises. Small repeated resets shift large patterns. Saying, I release control, is more than language. It's an embodied command. When declared with felt intention, it updates your nervous system's prediction. You're no longer proving, you're allowing. The phrase acts as a contract between conscious choice and subconscious habit. To practice, state it aloud, or in writing, while placing a hand on your heart. Feel the words land physically. Let the chest soften and the jaw unclench. Notice what mental stories arise and let them pass. Repeat the declaration as a ritualized cue that triggers coherence. Don't treat it as magic. Treat it as a recalibration tool. The first times it may feel hollow if old beliefs run strong. That's normal. Keep doing the practice until the body learns the new protocol. That's how language, feeling, and field conspire to change outcomes. Give the ego its job back. It's a manager, not the CEO. Its strengths, attention to detail, problem-solving, logistics, are valuable when they execute tasks from a place of alignment. But it fails when it leads the vision. Reframe it. The higher self senses, guides, and chooses. The ego organizes and implements. Use the ego to do the necessary small tasks without letting it overrule feeling. Practically, create a meeting protocol. Decide on a vision from your heart, then invite the ego to produce a practical step. If the ego tries to multiply tasks into anxiety, tell it to hold one task at a time. This division of labor keeps you efficient and coherent. It also quiets the identity conflict. The ego retains purpose while the soul leads with trust. Moving beyond the ego often correlates with measurable physiological shifts, decreased internal chatter, synchronized brain activity, and heart-brain coherence. People who practice consistent inner alignment report more intuitive hits, timely coincidences, and seemingly magical support. These are not fairy tales but emergent properties of a system tuned to receive. Global coherence creates a feedback loop. As synchronicities occur, confidence grows, which stabilizes the state, which invites more synchronicity. That momentum converts occasional miracles into a new normal. The practice is to cultivate small coherence wins daily so the loop self-reinforces. Keep the evidence bank. Note synchronicities and small wins, so your conscious mind has data that the field is working. That evidence quiets the ego's skepticism. Action still matters. The difference is origin. Forced effort arises from fear. If I don't do X, disaster. Inspired action rises quietly from alignment. A clear, efficient step that feels right and light. Forced effort scatters, inspired action concentrates. To tell them apart, check physiology. Forced effort tightens the body. Inspired action feels open and energized. Check the time cost. Forced action multiplies tasks, inspired action simplifies them. When you act from alignment, fewer moves achieve more. Practice minimal viable action. Pick one small next step that feels obvious and do it immediately. Track results. Over time you'll see inspired action consistently outperforms forced hustle. Create a short daily routine to stabilize coherence. Begin with 60 seconds of heart-centered breath. Inhale 5. Exhale 5. Focus on gentle warmth. Spend 90 seconds becoming the end state. Feel, smell, hear what success feels like. Ask for clarity. What would this look like if it were simple? Hold the answer for 30 seconds. Say your quantum command. I release control for 30 seconds while placing your hand on your heart. Finally, choose one small inspired action for the day. 5 minutes of meaningful effort, not 12 scattered tasks. Total time, about 5 minutes. Do it morning and again before sleep if you can. This minimalist protocol creates a consistent baseline of coherence that the field can read. It's not flashy, but it's powerful because it builds an embodied habit, not just intellectual assent. When you're in the middle of your day, use quick questions as checkpoints. Am I forcing or feeling? Am I proving or allowing? Am I narrowing options or widening them? If you catch forcing, stop and breathe. If you find proving, switch to small trust experiments. If you're narrowing possibilities, deliberately brainstorm 3 unexpected ways the outcome might arrive. These micro-checks build meta-awareness. Over time you'll spot the ego's patterns earlier and redirect energy to coherence before the field gets a chance to mirror doubt. When manifestation feels heavy, translate weight into a simplicity question. What is the smallest aligned next step? Replace long to-do lists with one potent act and one felt minute of alignment. Swap 7 rituals for one state-holding practice, plus one inspired action. The reframe trims friction and forces prioritization. It's also compassionate. Instead of shaming yourself for not doing enough, ask what would kindness toward this process look like. Often the answer is simpler than you expect. Experiment with reduction, remove one thing, and watch whether results improve. This is not laziness. It's strategic focus. Let's pull the thread tight. The field responds to resonance, not effort. Your ego complicates, your essence simplifies. The consequences are practical. Less wasted energy, more accurate signal, faster realignment, and spiritual. A life that feels lighter and more meaningful. This thesis isn't theoretical. It's practical. If you adopt it, your daily choices change. Fewer frantic rituals, more felt presence. Fewer how questions, more frequency work. Keep returning to this core. It's the lens that explains why some people move faster than others despite doing less. Now, let's make it real. Type or say the words. I release control. Place a hand on your chest and feel the words land. Notice the body soften. Notice attention widening. This simple activation is not a magic spell. It's a neurobiological and energetic recalibration. When you collectively declare it, in the comments, in a room or privately, you reinforce the habit of surrender. Some of you will feel immediate release, others mild resistance. Both responses are feedback. Keep practicing the declaration as a daily cue that resets your system toward coherence. Imagine waking each day already carrying the state of the outcome you desire. You step into challenges with curiosity instead of panic. People around you feel steadiness even if they don't understand it. Your decisions become lighter because they're guided by inner clarity rather than fear. Opportunities that used to pass by now register as invitations because your perceptual bandwidth has expanded. Relationships shift because you operate from a place of wholeness rather than neediness. Work becomes more creative and less frantic. This is not fantasy. It's a reorganization of attention and physiology. The more you inhabit coherence, the more the external world reorganizes around that signal. If you want a practical next step, choose one. Adopt the daily simplicity protocol. Practice the quantum command for 7 mornings. Or replace one complex ritual with a 5-minute state-holding practice. If you found this useful, offer a small commitment. Don't add more steps today. Remove one. The real call to action is humble. Do less and be more. If you're offering a guide or pinned resource, mention it as a support for deepening the practice. But remember, the work itself is within you. The field rewards clarity, not busyness. Close with the line you opened with, simplicity collapses miracles. Say it, mean it, and then step back and watch how the field begins to answer.